brief last kind of roundup session before you can all kind of get away. I just had a kind of couple of comments on the basis of what we've heard this afternoon. I think the first thing to say is about this issue about, you know, the teen vaping epidemic in America and what are we going to do about the kids and all the rest of it. It does lead me to think that particularly within LMIC regions where there are 80% of smokers, 50% of deaths, and the fact that in those countries, and I suspect probably globally, but the majority of breadwinners within those families are going to be the men. And it's the men who do smoke far more than the women. And I just kind of wonder if anybody's actually thinking about the kids in those families when they lose their father who can't either work anymore or who dies from a smoking-related disease. And I think there's a far bigger constituency of young people that we need to be thinking about, and not just the kids of white middle-class parents who have got the capacity to tug the sleeves of congressmen and senators with the promise of a vote. So that's the first point I wanted to make. The second point was I entirely agree with Julie about this whole concept of addiction. And I wouldn't even, to be honest, be using the word dependence. I mean, even the WHO, I think, have moved away from, when it talks about drug problems, has long stopped talking about addiction and uses the word dependence. But even then, that has quite a strong kind of medical connotation. And I don't think most people who are using safer nicotine products think of themselves in that light. So in a sense, if you take the nicotine out of the cigarette and you take the harm out of the habit, you finish up with a nicotine habit, which is actually, in general, for most people, really no more dangerous than all the other habits that we have. So I prefer to talk about a nicotine habit. And I think the problem with addiction, and I've worked in the drugs field, the UK drugs field now for over 40 years. And so I'm kind of well aware about what a serious drug problem is like. And it's all to do with just a complete breakdown of life, a loss of everything that Julie mentioned, family, jobs, relationships, and maybe life itself in the end. And it's got such negative and symbolic and stigmatizing connotations, the idea of addiction. To try and apply this to people who want to consume nicotine is A, completely ridiculous, but does serve a symbolic purpose for the people who would rather not see any nicotine in the world at all. And with that, I'm going to turn first to Martin to kind of talk about some of the aspects around regulation control and link that in with the consumer voice. Thank you.
Well, I think I could start by the question that Julie asked in that last panel, saying, you know, what do we do to ditch all the misinformation, which obviously then leads in turn to bad regulation. And really, I think it was Sun Tzu said in The Art of War that know thy enemy and know yourself, and you can not fear 100 battles. And just watch what the other side does and just do the same. You know, politics and regulation and all that thing, it's a long battle, it's a long, long game. And the other side, you'll see tobacco control always start off and say there are X number of smokers, 1 out of every 2 of them will die, there is no safe level of exposure. You hear these things over and over again, and that's what they do. They just repeat the same thing over and over and over again. And we've got to do the same thing. You've got to bring out the same themes over and over again. Wherever you are in the world, just keep banging on the door with the same themes over and over again. And that's the way. You know, it's a battle of wills at the end of the day, and nothing is easy in politics. You just got to keep banging that message until it goes in, and that's the way you do it. I mean, it's tough and it's tiresome and you feel exasperated at times, but that's basically what you've got to do. Okay.
And if you remember, the title of this year's GFN was The Future of Nicotine. So in a very few words, I'm going to ask Sarah to talk about the future of nicotine.
That's a big topic. I think the couple of things I wanted to say, I think that innovation and science are going to be incredibly important. And I always think of Marina Trani saying, the consumer is king, and the consumer is going to drive, the types of products that get developed and launched, and hopefully consumers will use them and stick with them, and that's what we want, is better products that compete with cigarettes, and the evidence to demonstrate that they are, which allows us to talk to regulators and push for evidence-based, sensible regulation. But the other thing I wanted to mention is the need for more places that people with very, very differing polarized views that can come together and meet each other in a way that is, acceptable. And I think that neutral third-party spaces, which actually includes things like FDA workshops, organizations like the Institute for In Vitro Sciences, who are pushing for standardized methods in the context of alternatives to animal testing. They run workshops funded by the FDA that bring in public health, academics, as well as the industry. And finally, Coresta, which is a scientific cooperation organization headed in France. And again, standards and standardization is really, really important to support the development of evidence-based regulatory frameworks. And that's another place that brings together the regulator, the regulated industry, and other stakeholders.
Thank you. I think that's quite an important message that, I've often seen, and I think Cliff has made this point in articles about, finding ways for kind of different parties and interested stakeholders to actually get together and to be able to have sensible conversations, because that's also, as Sarah says, a very important part of moving this whole debate and issue along. And with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for joining us this year. I'm going to say thank you to the people who are here, and to the people in our worldwide audience. Do have a safe journey from one room to another, and don't fall over the cat. And now I'm going to pass over to Paddy for a few final words.
Thanks, Harry. I just want to extend a little what Harry said and thank a number of people and organisations. I'd like to start by thanking CNN, particularly their Situation Room programme, Netflix, and the BBC Sports Match of the Day programme for giving me the inspiration for how to deliver this particular event. I did not waste my time during lockdown. And I'd further like to thank our incredible Polish team led by my colleague Grzegorz, and also Peter, Michael, and all of the KIK team for making that vision a reality. And I think it's been a fantastic couple of days. Everything's worked perfectly well, apart from loss of connection to Mexico, but I don't think we can be blamed for that. And I think that I'd just like to say, if anybody's got any ideas for any other shows I might watch so that I can get some inspiration for next year, please let me know. I'd like to thank all of our KACC conference team who are responsible for putting all of this together, and also Lindsay and all the staff from the Crown Plaza for hosting us, and to Lisa and the team at Visit Liverpool for all the help and assistance that they gave us. All the hosts and presenters, panelists, especially our wonderful commentary team, for putting together a pretty good set of presentations and a number of very, very good discussions. All of those who recorded conference content and also contributed to our new feature, the GFN'5s. For interest, if you're still watching, you're one of over 1,100 people who over the last 2 days have joined us, either in person or online for the event, which actually gives me faith that there are still some people who actually care about tobacco harm reduction. They came from 87 different countries. That's about, I think, about a third of the countries that make up the WHO. So maybe we're starting to win some of the argument, and maybe we can take it forward from here. All the content will be available online very soon as our team in Poland have had a chance to segment it and edit it in such a way that it'll be in bite-sized chunks for people to watch. And everybody who's registered, whether here or online, will receive a link to a feedback form. The feedback is incredibly important because it enables us to look at where we should be moving the event next year, look at what we should be covering in the event next year. And as an incentive to fill that form in, we have a prize draw every year. And I don't know whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, but the two winners of that prize draw will be given registrations, accommodation, and up to £300 each for travel expenses to come to GFN next year. And that GFN next year will be in 364 days' time, and will take place 16th to the 18th of June in the Marriott in Warsaw. So we'll be back in our usual place. I should also say that we received a huge number of questions online from people who wanted to ask something during the sessions. These won't be wasted. These will also be used to inform the content for next year. I actually have the outline for next year in front of me already because I'm a very obsessive individual. And obviously we can't extend enough thanks to those people who've actually joined us over the last couple of days, because without you, this actually makes no sense whatsoever. And just finally, I'd like to actually thank Gareth Southgate for giving England supporters, wherever they may be, hope that after 51 years, we might actually achieve something and win something again. And I'm not going to keep anybody now any longer away from preparations for the big game at Wembley tonight. And may the best team win, but not Scotland. But thank you all ever so much, and have safe journeys home. Thank you.